is Candy with eyes2jesus.blogspot.com, and I am doing some kitchen work right now. It is 4 o'clock in the evening and I need to make some yogurt because we need yogurt. And when I make yogurt, I generally make it a gallon at a time, and then we enjoy eating a lot of, drinking a lot of smoothies and making fruit and yogurt parfaits and whatnot. So I'm going to show you how I make yogurt. My yogurt making is pretty simple. I have a very easy method that works out for me really well. So I'm going to show you how I make yogurt, and maybe you'd want to give this a try. So the main thing or tool that you will need is a crock pot, and your crock pot, I would say at least needs to be 6 quart. I'm using a 7 quart, so I know 7 or 8 quart for sure will work, but 6 quart probably would work, but I'd be more comfortable with a 7 quart. And you want to make sure you have a lid that does not have holes in it, no venting holes. If yours does have venting holes, then you're going to want to maybe cover those up with some tape because temperature is important here. And I'm using your standard original crock pot, like a rival crock pot, the original crock pot. I've personally found that compared to the other crock pot brands like Pioneer Woman, Hamilton Beach, that the original crock pot or rival crock pot definitely seems to be the ticket and work better. So if you do have holes in your lid, cover those up though. If you have an original crock pot without clamps at the top and it's at least 7 quart, then you don't have to do any alterations. Alright, so you might see my crock pot, stoneware pot here. You might see it's a bit wet. I just washed it. It was already clean, but I always wash this before I make yogurt, even though it's already clean, because this is going to be a lacto fermentation project going on in here, and we want to grow only good bacteria. We don't want to grow any of the bad stuff. So like I think I mentioned, I make my yogurt a gallon at a time. You feel free to cut this recipe in half or in a fourth. Or you can always freeze your extra yogurt. So let's get started. So to start with, I have my freshly cleaned crock pot stoneware pot, and I'm just taking a gallon of whole milk from the store, and I'm going to pour it in, all of it, into the pot. Obvious next step is let's now move this into the cooker. And pop on the lid. Of course, you want to make sure your lid is clean too. And we're going to set the crock pot to low. And grab a timer, set it for 2.5 hours. And I'll see you in 2.5 hours. Meanwhile, just let it sit there on low with the lid on, undisturbed, for 2.5 hours. And here we are 2.5 hours later, so I'm going to show you the next step, step 2, on making homemade yogurt in a crock pot. Crock pot's been on low for 2.5 hours. I'm going to switch it to off. Crock pot's been sitting off with the lid on. So now we're up to step number 3. This is very simple yogurt to make. So we're going to remove the lid and set it to the side. And it is time to inoculate the milk, which is at a very good temperature. It's still a bit warm to the touch. I just touched it, but it's not hot enough to destroy the living bacteria in the yogurt. So I got a cup of store-bought, just plain yogurt. Make sure, of course, that it's active culture. And I'm just going to pop that cup of yogurt in. And then I'm just using a whisk to whisk it in. So it's whisked in there very well. You want it to make sure you get thoroughly whisked in. Next, grab the lid and let's put it back on top. Then you want to take a bath towel. You're going to kind of fold it in half and you're going to stick it over the crock pot. Leave the crock pot off. This is going to insulate in the residual heat. We are going to leave it like this for at least several hours. I'm actually going to leave it like this for the rest of the night. I'm going to probably head to bed in an hour or two, and then I will return to this tomorrow morning when I get up. So I will see you tomorrow morning for the last step. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the next day. I got out my spoon here, and it is time for step 4 of the yogurt making. Let's remove the towel that we put on last night before bed. Remove the lid. Okay, that smells like yogurt. So I'm going to take a nice big spoon, and we have a crock pot full of yogurt. And now we are on to the last step in the yogurt making. I took a very large bowl, and inside I put in a big strainer, and now I just poured the whole gallon of yogurt into flour sackcloth that I put on top of the strainer. So now I'm just going to cover this over, and this is going to just sit out on my counter just like this for 2 hours. I will show you what we got in 2 hours. And here we are 2 hours later, and I got the strainer here, and I just now opened this up so you can see the yogurt inside. So I'm going to get this taken apart, and I'm going to scoop this yogurt out into a bowl, and then I'll show you what we've got. Okay, so what I essentially did was I had a strainer over the bowl. I had flour sackcloth in the strainer. I poured the gallon of yogurt from the crock pot into the strainer, and I let it drip out for 2 hours. And the liquid that drips out is called whey, and you can throw it out, or you can drink it, or you can throw it into smoothies. This is also good to drink if you have a stomach ache. Some people swear by it for indigestion and heartburn and various types of upset stomach. I also love to pour this in when I'm soaking legumes. This works way better than pouring in a bit of vinegar. And here is the finished product. Here is homemade yogurt. And that's how I make homemade yogurt. So now I'm going to show you a few ways that we consume our homemade yogurt. The first thing I'm doing before I get this yogurt into the fridge is, in a moment, I'm going to go ahead and get a cover on this and pop this into the fridge. But first, I scooped out some yogurt and put it into this contraption. I'm going to make some yogurt cream cheese. So this is an empty juice pitcher, and then on the top of the juice pitcher, I put on a fine mesh strainer. And then I laid some clean flour sackcloth on top of the fine mesh strainer, and then I just put some yogurt in here. And I didn't measure, I just put in however much looked good. So now I'm just going to cover this over, and both of these are going to go into the fridge. This for when we're ready to have some, and this because I am going to make cream cheese yogurt. Now, this will sit in the fridge undisturbed for about 24 hours. And I will show you what this looks like in 24 hours. And here we are about 20 hours later, and I just took my contraption out of the fridge. So now I pull back the flour sackcloth, and inside there is yogurt cream cheese. So it can be used just like a cream cheese. It can be spread on toast and bagels or whatnot. And meanwhile, what dripped down inside the juice pitcher is some more whey that you can go ahead and keep or discard. So I'm going to pop this into a container and put it into the fridge, because this will be fabulous to have on some toast at a future time. I'm feeling like doing a lot of yogurt for like breakfast type of things this week. So this is Monday morning, and I thought I would make a fruit and yogurt smoothie before I exercise. So I thought I'd put on the camera and just show you how I tend to make my fruit and yogurt smoothies with my homemade yogurt. So I use a NutriBullet blender, but I mean, you can use any kind of blender you would like. But in my blender, I'm going to grab a cup of my homemade yogurt. Look at all that creamy goodness. So I was popping in a cup of homemade yogurt into the blending cup or into the blender. And then I'm going to do some honey and I'd say this is roughly a tablespoon of honey. And then I'm going to do a half cup of frozen fruit, and I've got frozen blueberries and raspberries today. So a half cup of frozen fruit. My favorite is frozen peach, but I'm out of frozen peach. So I'm going to do frozen blueberries and frozen raspberries. That's all I put in there. Cup of homemade yogurt, tablespoon of raw honey, half cup of frozen fruit. So let's pop on the lid. And I'm going to get this all blended together. Alright, let's open it up. Looks and smells so good. That's my fruit and yogurt smoothie. Bon appetit, right? So you saw a few days ago I showed you another use for homemade yogurt, or any yogurt really of course, is to make fruit and yogurt smoothies. Well, here we are a few days later, and it's a couple hours after supper, it's evening time, and I am going to use some more of my homemade yogurt to make some snacks for some of the kids. And so I thought I'd film right now and show you some other ways of using the homemade yogurt. So first thing, I'm going to make a fruit and yogurt parfait. And so inside this sundae dish, I put in some blueberries. And on top of that, just going to reach into my container of yogurt, which is getting low, and pop some yogurt on top. And then, since this is an unsweetened homemade yogurt, I'm going to drizzle a little bit of honey just right around on top that you can go ahead and mix in. Then I'm going to put in a sprinkle, just a small sprinkle of slivered almonds, and then a 3-finger pinch of flax seeds. And then here we have a fruit and yogurt parfait. Then another snack I'm going to make with the yogurt is, you remember, shortly after we made the yogurt, we turned some of it into yogurt cream cheese. So we still have some yogurt cream cheese. So for the other snack, I'm going to just put some yogurt cream cheese on some bread. And it's toast, and I toasted a couple slices of my homemade sourdough bread. So we're going to put some homemade yogurt cream cheese on top of a couple slices of toasted homemade sourdough bread. If you would like to know how I make my sourdough bread, including how to make the starter, I do have a video on that in the homemaking section, homemaking playlist of my YouTube channel. So the yogurt cream cheese spreads very nicely. And yogurt cream cheese can be used in the place of actual cream cheese, in the place of sour cream. You can just spread it on toast just plain like I am, or you can mix in a little bit of maybe like a homemade jelly or add some fruit to it, however you would like. So now you see there are multiple different ways that you can serve up your homemade yogurt. Have a blessed day.